Hello everyone, I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Mom.
And this is Millennial Mom, and today we are here to talk about Rated Love, Season 3, Episode 6, Friends with Benefits. And I don't see anybody on this show that's trying to be friends with benefits. I see people trying to get more benefits than friendship.
Okay.
So let's get into the review. So in this episode, it's all about the ladies and their friends or a family member coming to see their new boos and prospects. So the first person that we're going to start off with in this episode is Alex and Brian. And the first thing that caught my attention as soon as Alex was, going on a walk with Brian, letting him know that, you're going to see my friend Tanisha. She's going to grill you a little bit, but you don't really have anything to worry about. He's basically like, I hope her friend's not a hater because Brian's going to do what Brian is going to do, what he does best. And I'm like, Brian, everybody is not a hater. People just have opinions that you don't like. And that's what her friend's going to bring.
Or vice versa, opinion that maybe they don't like. But with Brian saying, he's going to be Brian. Now, isn't that something that may have got him in a little bit of, not trouble, but a little bit of, I don't know, keep your eye out on him last week with Alicia and the ghosting zombie to whatever the case may be?
Of course, but he don't see it, so.
But now we meet Tanisha. And Tanisha's friendly. She's very giggly and giddy, happy to see Alex. And you know what? I wasn't surprised by the conversation that they had, nor any other of the ladies' friends as the show goes along, because they just want to know, especially in a setting like this, like, how do you know this is real, pretty much, and how do you know he is the one for you? The conversation also came up with Brian's daughter and him co-parenting, how he feels about that. And, Brian said that he was a little immature when he was younger, and I'm like, younger? Okay.
Why you think he's still young?
I think he's still immature. Now he realizes that when he was younger, he didn't necessarily focus on the relationship at hand. And what's in his life now, his 3-year-old daughter, and he knows now how he's changed and how he looks at his daughter as a princess. And I think he was trying to say that he sees women differently now because he has a daughter, and how maybe he's treated women in the past and he may not want the same for his daughter. Did you get that? Yeah,
especially when her friend asked her about cheating, because she already knows that Alex has trust issues or concerns if you saw last season. But he said that, in the past, especially with his baby mom co-parenting, he didn't say he necessarily cheated. He just said that he wasn't getting the love that she wasn't able to give. And he kind of had to find it other places. And then their relationship just kind of just fizzled out and ended. And I'm just like, see, Brian, I don't know. I feel like you still have that in you, because even throughout this whole episode, Mom, I don't know if you saw, but I'm sure you saw that they kept bringing back up that Alicia situation.
They did, and honestly, I think they could have put that to bed, but since it's so fresh, and maybe how Brian's presenting himself, they're letting him know, like, okay, now we saw what happened last time with Alicia. It seems like you might be on that same road. After Brian excused himself and it was just Alex and her friend said, yeah, he seems like he's a good guy. It seems like you like him, but also seems like you have your guard up.
I was surprised by that, and her friend knowing that. And even Alex tagged on him like, yeah, I still have my guard up with him. So she's like, is it really lust? Or are you really feeling this dude? And Alex is like, I don't know. And I'm like, Alex, are you about to jump ship? I'm kind of hoping she does, because Brian deserves it. Now, coming from last week's situation with Jay, Winter, Simone, and Joy, because she got technically thrown in the mix. Simone and Jay sat down, and Jay pretty much was like, what you did wasn't cool. And then Simone was like, I know that it's just coming from insecurities and all this other stuff. And before she can even apologize, he was like, I forgive you.
Yeah.
I was like, could you give her the chance to make it seem like you're listening to the conversation? He's trying to protect his peace, and he pretty much gonna keep it pushing.
And I agree.
Okay, Jay. And then we get to what I think is the highlight of this whole entire show. Naya Chris and her friend, what was her friend's name? Kiki?
Mm-hmm, Kiki.
Lord, they were having such a good conversation at first. And it really seemed like Kiki was feeling it because Kiki was talking about, you know, family and in the church. And we found out Chris is an ordained deacon.
And I was like,
stuff. I was like, Chris,
where did that come from?
Have all these talents we didn't know. Just thought you was a DJ and just like to have your chest out.
Yeah, but I'm about to say now, what ordained deacon go around with all them buttons unbuttoned?
Hey, they be out there, but that's a whole nother conversation. But when it came down to the finances situation, that's when everything not even went south. It just disappeared at this point. When we found out that Chris, you know, pretty much wants to share things 50-50. It's a partnership. It's 2020. He believes, you know, women has equal rights and everything like that. So if he does the mortgage and does like another bill or two, then she could do the other bills plus the car payments and stuff. And Kiki and Naya's face was like, girl,
like, did you hear what he said? Like, this is a no, this is a boo all day.
And Chris felt that vibe too. Chris was like, oh, did I mess up here?
And, you know, while they were talking with him saying to split things, stuff like that, I think maybe he could have been a little bit more specific because...
How much more specific? I think he said what he meant.
I do believe he said what he meant, but being specific as far as what exactly he wanted for the future. Because when he threw in like, it's 2020, women are renaissance. He was like, you know, you probably make more money than me and all this other stuff. I think he should have been specific to what he was saying or trying to get across, but the message wasn't there. And he also felt it wasn't there. I too felt the message wasn't there. But I don't think for me that would have necessarily turned me off the way it turned off Naya, because now with Naya and Kiki and they discuss those relationships, she's like, you know, I need a man that's going to take care of this, take care of that. I think what she was looking for was him being the man of the household and then putting his best foot forward. When Naya said that she needed a man who could be there for her because of her miscarriages, I'm thinking, what does the miscarriages have to do with taking care of the house?
In the past, when she's gotten pregnant before and she was probably the breadwinner of the house, whatever man she was with wasn't stepping up and taking care of business like she needed him to, but then she knows she had the miscarriages, so you know things went another way. So now she's forward thinking when she does get pregnant, because she wants to in the future, she wants the man to provide and be the leader in the household and not have to worry about her finances, because she already knows, you know, she'll have to take time off and stuff. So she's looking for that security, and Chris gave her zero security in that conversation.
Right. Well, that's when I said that he said, when he was like, oh, well, you probably make more money than me. And I'm like, see, that right there probably is not going to work for Naya. But then when we see Chris in his next scene with Simone and Joy at the pool, apparently Chris has also known Joy since 2015. I'm like, what is going on here?
We already knew this though.
But Joy is also a confidant to Jay, and she was giving advice to him when he mentioned, you know, he thinks he messed up with the finances and stuff like that. And then who posed the question, Joy or Simone?
Well, it was Simone, because Joy knew his heart was in the right place. You know, some people do want to split 50-50 and other people probably like Naya doesn't want to do all that. So Simone was like, okay, let's try this again. How would you reword this to Naya when you talk to her later?
Right.
He said, you know, I would still do the mortgage thing, but then he hit it with the but. She was like, see, that's that but right there.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to hear the but. She wants to hear you do pretty much everything.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you need to have a conversation. Well, not sometimes. I do believe whoever you're with, you need to have a conversation about what it is that you want the finance to look like, kids, whatever the outlook is.
Before they ended up being booed up together.
Yeah.
And then we get into the scene with Winter and Edwin. They're outside playing cornhole. You know, Edwin is definitely making his rounds to the females in the house. He's feeling everyone's vibes and energy. He is definitely doing the premise of the show, not just falling for any old person. But I thought it was very interesting that when Winter posed this question to Edwin, like, so what kind of person are you on vacation? Edwin said he's the not the sleep in type. I'm the sleep in type.
You're sleep in type, vacation or not vacation. I thought it was interesting when he asked, well, what would keep me up or keep me sleep later, whatever the case may be. She's like,
what would keep me in bed?
That's what he said. She's like, oh, you know, what he's like, thongs, oil, massages, and they got real close.
Twerk fest. I was like, twerk fest? Edwin? Child, I couldn't believe it. That's not something that I thought he was going to say. Then this all ties in together because I was like, how is this going to tie into something? So it seems to be that Winter, Edwin, Joy, and Jay go on a double date, because I'm going to put that in quotes, with their friends that are coming in for Winter and Joy. And as they were walking down, I was kind of confused by this. So I was really happy when Joy's friend, when they all sat down, was like, so how is this working out? Because I know that you and you are all liking each other.
Right, so you like her and her, but she likes him and she likes you. And when Jay was like, well, as long as you say I don't like him and him.
Right. I was like, thank you for answering that question for me, because I was like, what is going on here?
But what else was supposed to happen?
They could have did it separately.
No, they're at the Rated Love House, so it's more fun and more open to do things, you know, with someone else. That way the pressure's not all on you.
Well, the pressure was mostly on Jay, because Jay basically has right now Winter and Joy. So Winter's friend is like, okay, well, we know that you guys are kind of feeling each other. But what is the hierarchy? Because I know that you have to like somebody more than you like somebody else.
Now, that was the question of the evening, was it not?
One of the questions of the evening.
True. Well, this group, I mean. And the way that Jay answered was correct, but kind of like, I don't know, because it was going to hurt someone's feelings. He did say that, you know, he likes them both, but they both give off different energy. And as he was going along, explaining why he likes Joy more, Winter's face dropped.
Her face did drop, but you know, someone was going to get chosen. And I am, once again, so happy. I am feeling Joy's friend, because Joy was like, Jay, you're kind of giving me like a showman vibe. Like, it kind of seems like he has this front on, like he's like the good guy. And I don't know if I said it on camera, but I definitely know I said it to Mom. I've been feeling that way about Jay for quite a few weeks now. Like, he puts his best foot forward, but like, is that really who he says he is? Of all the conversation that was happening, when we finally did get to Edwin, because I was like, poor Edwin, he was just left out the loop.
I don't think so. I think he was doing his normal thing. He lets people talk because he's a communicator. You want to listen to hear what the group has to say. And then it was his turn. He got on his question and the things that he felt about it. And one of the questions was asked, how do you feel about Winter? And of course the response was, you know, I like her energy. I mean, you know, they just pretty much started talking. And then the question came around to, well, how do you feel about marriage? And he was like, you know, I want to get married, all that stuff too. And then he brought up his mom and his sisters. And then,
because his mom and his sisters are like a support to him. So he's looking for someone in his marriage to be a support for him, so he doesn't always have to lean on his mom and sisters. But that brings Winter's friend to be like, so are your sisters pretty much like the type that might come between you and her in a relationship, might be overbearing? He's like, no, that's not gonna happen. But if we know anything about these type of shows, it usually does happen. So later on in the evening for Edwin, after he comes from that double date brunch that he had, he now has a single date with Naya. And Naya, girl, Naya was laying on him really thick on this episode, because she knew her ex-boo now, Chris, was not the one. So she brought up the question, basically posed to Chris earlier, to Edwin, like, how would you deal with the financials in the household if we were together?
You know, this is the third episode in a row I have to do a hard stop, because with her mentioning what she had in her date with Chris to bring it to Edwin, I'm sure she was going to get a different answer. And if she got the same answer, then what? Clearly,
Edwin would have been off the list too.
Clearly, Edwin gave the right answer that she was looking for. He's going to be the man of the house, you know, take care of this, take care of that. He also brought up his mom and his sisters, you know, how he's used to helping out and doing things for them, and see how, you know, just life lines up to be, as far as, again, what Naya's looking for. The man in the house with those finances. And as soon as he said that, oh, did she lean in close on that lounge chair? And
she leaned in close, massaging his scalp, just doing everything that he likes. And she was like, so what would you want from me?
And at the same time,
you comfortable.
Right. And at the same time,
you have to look in the camera for that one.
And at the same time, Edwin felt the change of the vibe.
I felt it too. It was really uncomfortable to watch.
It was uncomfortable, and it was overly obvious. I'm like, So I think I mentioned this last week. Maybe she has some thinking to do, and clearly she does.
Clearly she did, because she is jumping ship, and it's like, Chris, who? It's all Team Edwin right now. And I'm not really liking that she did that. So now that basically brings us to the dinner scene where everyone's pretty much sitting at the table, but we're only focused on Chris and Naya. And Chris wants to talk to Naya again. You know, he wants to bring back up his answer, but bring it in a different way. So he was starting off good, and it looked like Naya was listening and paying attention.
No.
But when he hit that but, it was all over from there. And Chris felt that vibe too. And, you know, I felt bad for Chris a little bit, because he was just basically saying how he felt, and he really thought this was going to be his number one boo to the end, and he's slowly starting to realize that it's not happening.
Well, Chris may have started off good in theory, but Naya, when she was eating her food and she was looking up at him, just like, why are you still talking to me? So I didn't get that vibe from Naya at all.
Oh, maybe it was the little production scene that made me feel a little bit for him. The music, it was the music. All right, so we finally get to see someone else with their friend, and that's Adriana. So Adriana's friend, I forgot what her name is. Morgan?
Yeah.
Yes, her name is Morgan. She was as bubbly and energetic, kind of like Adriana is, or even a little bit more than
Exactly.
Adriana.
I was like, she is happy to be there. Like, do you see a boo back there yourself, girl?
So as soon as they were starting to talk about Rashid already pulls up. Rashid knows that he pretty much has this in a bag. And from the conversation that they had, it was really nice to hear.
Yep. And the thing about Rashid, he was 100% honest, like he said he would be. And he mentioned he was married before. And again, the love of his life is his 70-year-old son, and how he's wanting to be in his life and stay in there continually and show him what a man is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
But when Morgan said, so you want to be married again? He's like, you know what? Yeah. Well, what'd you do wrong? Or how come you're not married anymore? And the answer was, and I thought it was a good answer, you know, there were times, and he was partly to blame too, that, you know, they didn't communicate like they were supposed to, and just all the things that he took ownership of, which is true. When you're in a relationship, it's a partnership, but you and the other person both have some type of fault in there, you know, unless it was something extenuating, I guess. But then the conversation went to kids, and I guess that's where Rashid and Adriana connect on, because clearly they want to have a house full of kids.
3 boys. He wants a girl thrown in there. They just want a big, happy family. And I felt like this was one of the best conversations that a friend had throughout the whole show. Because then Rashid eventually walked off and left, you know, let them have their girl time. And then the friend was like, I like him. You know, that's not the type that you said you were going in here for, but I like him. And then Adriana throws in the mix like, you know, well, Calfani, there's another type that I was kind of looking for, you know. Someone who I'm not usually used to, but someone I'm trying to get used to. He has the body, he has the skin type, you know. He seemed like he might be for me, but her friend was trying to bring her back down to reality. Like, you know, only thing you told me was like the lust part of him. Exactly. You didn't really tell me how you really genuinely felt about him. So, and you might have some things to worry about.
Exactly. And when she said that, Adriana kind of sat back in her chair like
she was thinking about it.
Like, you're right. And I was like, see, you do have something to think about, Adriana. So now we see Denise with her friend. She said it's her friend / soul sister, Terry. And I was like, okay, so you have someone you could connect and talk to? Because it didn't seem, I hate to say this, but I'm trying to be positive. It doesn't seem like Denise has too many people she connects with on the female side, if you know what I mean. So while they were talking, she was saying she's got 2 men for her to meet. And I'm thinking, who is the 2 men?
Anthony. I don't know why you keep forgetting about Anthony in her corner besides Calfani.
No, I don't forget about Anthony. I just was like, who? Because she wants Calfani, period. So maybe she's trying to, I don't know.
Keep her options open.
Okay.
She's not trying to be, you know, like Chris.
Right. So when Calfani and Anthony walk up, I do believe his confession was like, you know, this is weird for me to come meet Denise. I'm like, I know. And they all end up playing games, and what was it, the chess?
Probably another cornhole game, something of that matter.
And during the game, of course, the friend had pretty decent conversation, decent questions. The questions were, what does marriage look like to you, and if you ever cheated before? And what was Anthony's answer?
Well, Anthony came off pretty honest. He was like, you know, I used to play football. You know, he had some women, basically, and he cheated before, but he's learned from that. He's grown from that. He's all about loyalty and respect. He has that tatted on him. So going forward, for any woman he's going to be with, it's going to be respect and loyalty. I was like, okay, Anthony.
I was feeling that. Hopefully it's true. And then when they got to Calfani, his answer was the soul ties answer. That's what he wants in marriage, you know, to be the man of the house, of course, but he wants a soul tie. And he also wants to break the generational curse. And that, to me, is what brought Denise into really vibing with Calfani and their connection, because whatever generational curses she may have been through in her soul ties or where she's looking for, she has really honed in on Calfani for this fact. That's why I'm like, who's the 2 men? So, and then during her confessional, she's like, I think I love him. I can see that. Out of all her exterior, right, out of all her hard exterior that she presents, I can honestly say, I can see that she has deep feelings. I don't know if it's love, but I can see her moving that way. Now, as far as Calfani, I don't know if he loves her, but I think he likes her, and I think they connect on the mental and the communication vibe.
I think Calfani vibes with her, but I really think it's so interesting that Denise is kind of like gun-ho on him not really venturing out to other people. But he's like, you know, I like her, but she can do her thing. She can do whatever she wants. So I'm like, Calfani, I mean, we know it's a show, but do you really like her like that? Or is she just a prospect and you just want to keep mingling? All right, so in the end of the episode, we see all the ladies sit down with Nephew Tommy because one of the men's is going home. So we talked to Simone first, and Simone lets us know that her friend sadly couldn't make it because her baby was having a medical emergency. And I know this was probably a couple months ago, but I hope everything is all right with the baby now.
Me too. And then they get around to Joy and how her friend sees her relationship with Jay, and
they don't like it.
Okay.
And the same goes to Winter's friend. They don't really like Jay because it's like a showman. It's like a seller, like a real estate agent, something along those lines of he's trying to sell a product, and whatever the product he was trying to sell to both Winter and Joy's friends, they weren't buying.
But here's the thing with Winter, though. When she said that with, I don't know, was like a little
hate, disdain. No, not hate. Disdain.
With a little chip on her shoulders, like
yeah.
She didn't like either. But maybe she stopped feeling Jay when he said that Joy was his number one.
She didn't stop feeling Jay. It's just temporary feelings for the moment.
When we finally bring it around to Naya, and what she said stunned not just the group, stunned me too.
And Nephew Tommy. Because Nephew Tommy was like, okay, so you had that thing with Chris, and she's basically like, what thing?
Right.
I wasn't gonna hold on Chris. Chris who? I mean, yeah, I obliged to his lust, but I wasn't really feeling him like that.
Obliged to his obligations.
I never heard a word like that in my life, so that's why I messed it up a little bit. But it's like, unless we missaw something with our 2 eyes and Nephew Tommy's 2 eyes, every ceremony that you've been at, you've been on this man. You've been talking so great about this man. You was kissing this man in front of everybody. Like, this was your number one pick. So it's like, now just because he said that little financial thing that you didn't really like, and it kind of seemed like he was moving more towards a compromise because he actually has feelings for her, she just dropped him like it was nothing.
And after the end of those conversations, now the ladies decide who is up for elimination.
The two people we find out are up for elimination are Brian and Chris. And I thought it was interesting that they chose Brian because even though Alex was vibing with Brian, she was kind of worried about the lust thing. And then Joy, it was kind of random what Joy said when she was like, oh, I think Brian talks too much, and the whole thing with Alicia. I was like, where did this even come from? I didn't even know you had a conversation with Brian. But okay, so Denise sits down with Brian and Joy sits down with Chris. And I honestly thought Brian was going to go home because once again, they brought up that Alicia thing. And I hope this is the last week they're going to stop talking about Alicia because she's no longer here. But Denise, you know how Denise is. She not letting nothing slip.
Right.
She was like, look, we have trust issues with you in the house because of what happened with Alicia. You need to start being more upfront with people, telling the truth, because that's what's going to last you longer in this house and with your relationships. So I thought Brian was going to go right there, but she was like, Brian, you good. I was like, dang, is that it?
Yeah, I thought he was going to go too. And once again, I'm like, why are they choosing Denise to have these conversations? But then again, I could kind of think in my mind why they would, but that's neither here nor there.
And when it came to Joy and Chris, I honestly felt bad for Chris because it kind of, as the show has progressed, seemed like Chris was trying to be ready to love with somebody and he thought it was going to be with Naya. But as Joy was starting to talk to him, like, you know, it was basically about that financial situation. And Chris was like, you know, I felt that energy shift and he knew that it was his time to go. And he was kind of sad about this. He said that he's going to have to take some time off from this. And I'm like, oh, Chris.
Yep, because he was all in with Naya. Remember those kisses, even though they were like pet kisses a couple weeks ago, and they were at the table. And they're like, oh, we kissed many times. I mean, they were, it seemed to be booed up. But the finance thing, that finance just shut it all the way down. And honestly, this episode, all the men, I don't know who I would have thought to went home.
Well, everyone, that was pretty much the end of this week's episode. And I thought it was a pretty good episode. Next week, I feel like somebody might be getting some karma coming back their way because the energy you put out is definitely the energy you're going to get back to you. And I can definitely see that happening for one, maybe two people. What do you think about this episode, Mom?
Same thing, but I thought this episode wasn't as interesting as it could be. It was only interesting around Naya and Chris because that seemed to float the show just like last week with Alicia and Brian. So I'm still waiting to see other couples match up, mix and mingle.
Yeah, well, let us know what you guys thought about this week's episode of Ready to Love. Thank you all so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe bell because we have some things coming in the future. And also give this video a thumbs up and all that great stuff.
Thank you all for watching. And as always, live simply, be grateful.